Sorry, cake eaters, your globe does not work. This does, however, work on both the physical flat Earth model and the metaphysical etheric Earth toroidal model. On the flat Earth, east and west are not straight lines like on a globe. They curve in a circle around the plane from either direction of where the observer is. So relative to the solar noon sun position for Lake Pukaki, New Zealand there, the sun is doing this, curving around the same east-west latitude line from Lake Pukaki's solar noon to their sunset, whereas on a globe's east to west coordinates, it would look like this. But on the flat Earth, north just means closer to the North Pole in a latitude ring than from where it started or where you are observing from. So you may falsely say, well, if Lake Pukaki is here and the North Pole is that way, and their sunset is also kind of that same way, isn't that northwest of them? No, because north means a latitude circle inside of that yellow circle closer to the North Pole, which the sun never does. The sunset point is still on the same exact yellow west latitude circle as where it was at their solar noon, even though it looks northwest to us looking down relative to facing the North Pole from there. So that green line between Lake Pukaki's solar noon and sunset represents true northwest, because anywhere on that yellow line between is still just plain old west. And what is the opposite of north? Obviously south. So if that green line is northwest of Lake Pukaki's solar noon, it is clear that position 0 is right on the green northwest line, and position 1, the purple arrow, is farther away from the green northwest line from solar noon position 0, and then position 4, the light blue line, is even farther away from the north green line than both of those. And since the yellow line is due west and the green line is north and the opposite of north is south, anyone can see that even though the sun is traveling due west around that yellow circle, position 4 has to be southwest of positions 0 and 1, relative to position 0 or solar noon, because it is the farthest away opposite of the north green line. That's position 4 northwest, that's southwest, away from north. That's how the sun moves from 0 north solar noon to west-southwest of New Zealand's sunset, while still giving everyone in Madagascar and South Africa on a latitude ring inside of New Zealand or north of New Zealand a 90-degree zenith solar noon straight overhead later that same exact day. And that is how that same sun can come around north of New Zealand on the inside yellow northern latitude ring over Rio de Janeiro in South America at 90 degrees zenith solar noon straight over their Latin heads while New Zealand is having their nighttime. But then when it gets to here, New Zealand's next day's sunrise, be coming at New Zealand from the east-southeast, because relative to their solar noon, that green line is northeast of them, and that yellow line the sun is traveling around is clearly coming at their solar noon intersect from further away from that green line, or southeast of it, between hours 3 and 4, and sure as shit curves back towards the green line to end up north of them at their next day's solar noon, just like this. You? Not so much. Of course, I already explained this in the beginning of part 1 for those with eyes to see and brains that still function, but because New Zealand there in red is south or on an outside latitude ring farther out from the north than the ecliptic belt that the sun never leaves in yellow, no matter what day of the year, their solar noon will always be due north of them on a compass, whether the sun is here December 21st or way up here June 21st. The closest the sun will ever be to them on any given day in that yellow belt is here, due north, It will never go behind them where they have to turn around behind them to what we are falsely programmed to think of as south on a compass to see their solar noon. The rising sun is not coming from a northern latitude ring inside that red circle closer to the North Pole than at New Zealand's solar noon, and it is not setting in a latitude ring in that red circle closer to the North Pole than New Zealand's solar noon. So it can't get any more norther from New Zealand than its closest solar noon point there. So angularly speaking, it is coming from the opposite southeast of due north solar noon, peaking in due north at solar noon, and setting in the opposite farthest southwest of closest north solar noon. Our globe indoctrination makes us think of south as just one direction. On the globe, if 360 people at the North Pole all head due south 1 degree longitude apart from each other, they all end up at the exact same place, there. There is only one south on the globe. On the flat Earth, they all end up scattered around the ice ring with no Uber lift home, because there are infinite souths fanning out in a circle from the one North Pole. Gleason felt there was even more to the story, and again, I'm not claiming or agreeing this is how it is or how it works, only showing you how it could work where it can't work on a globe. The globies themselves say it is computed that the sun's rays lose nearly 1/4 their brilliancy by passing through the Earth's atmosphere, and if that atmosphere, alleged to be 45 miles, extended 15 times as far from the surface as it does, or 675 miles, we should receive no light at all from the sun, but should be plunged into perpetual night or darkness. Remember that. Light penetrates the rare body, like hot or dry air, further than the denser, like cold or moist air. It also passes through the more transparent more readily than through the less transparent. Anyone outside on a cloudy day or foggy morning versus a sunny cloudless day can attest to this. Heat expands or rarefies air, and cold condenses it. The southern atmosphere is more transparent or rarefied than the northern atmosphere, meaning light penetrates farther through the air in the south. Thus, the tropical or equatorial air is expanded more and rare than the cold Arctic and also the cold Antarctic. So Gleason surmised when the sun is here on the red equator ring on both the March 21st and September 21st spring and fall equinoxes, even though the sun's light should shine in a full round circle around it, because the atmosphere in the Arctic inner circle and Antarctic outer ice wall circle are so cold they are condensed and the sun's light cannot penetrate their air, while the much hotter and rarefied air between the warm tropics and a little further each way outside allows the light to penetrate further, hence making this bean shape in yellow instead of a perfect circle. Its light is able to expand through the rarefied air east and west around the circle in the bean shape, but not the cold and condensed air north or inside circle or south, the ice ring circle. And since the outer or southern air is more rarefied than the northern, the most light would penetrate farthest from the source sun in the southern latitude rings, the long green arrow, which could also explain why Lake Pukaki, New Zealand, who is still having hot 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 22 Celsius days in March and September, like Denmark's hottest summer days in June in the condensed northern hemisphere air, despite the sun provably being way far north of them on the red equator ring, could have the light preceding the actual sun appearing to come in from the southeast and leave in the southwest, because the sun's preceding and trailing light is penetrating farther in the southern rarefied air. The sun's light is almost as far south as the ice wall there, and that same ice wall is clearly south of New Zealand there. So is that preceding light not approaching New Zealand from the southeast? And that light hasn't even fully penetrated the ice shelf yet. Whereas this same effect would be even more pronounced on the December 21st winter solstice, which is actually hot summer for New Zealand, when the sun is still north of New Zealand, but even more south of the equator on the Tropic of Capricorn ring, meaning even more hot air and rarefied air for the south, and allowing even more southern light to get through on its way to and from New Zealand at sunrise and sunset, this time penetrating even into the ice shelf itself, not just outside of it like the equinoxes. Now imagine the mental globe gymnastics it takes to look at Ujjayan, India there, on the northern inner Tropic of Cancer, just south below the sharp peninsula of Dubai there, in June, on the June 21st summer solstice, having their solar noon 90 degrees zenith straight above their head, proving the sun is indeed traveling east-west across the Tropic of Cancer. And there's Lake Pukaki, New Zealand, way down south of the Tropic of Cancer, and way southeast of Ujjayan, India, there on a globe. So after Pukaki's sunset, the sun is provably still moving northwest away from Lake Pukaki. Southwest of them on a globe would be the sun putting on the brakes and shooting straight down there past Fantasy Island. Yet here's Lake Pukaki, New Zealand on the same day in June, the 21st, the northern summer solstice, doing exactly that, having their receding sunlight after sunset moving west-southwest of them to south-southwest of them. This is obviously more than ludicrously impossible on a globe, without the globe suddenly spinning south to north 90 degrees to make the visual sun shoot north to south 90 degrees and killing everyone instantly with cataclysmic tidal waves and earthquakes every day this provably happens. But again, it works fine theoretically on the physical flat earth Gleason model, with the sun's preceding and following light still reaching, approaching, and leaving New Zealand from farther south outside latitude circles than the actual visible sun itself, provably north of New Zealand. I think Gleason felt the cake eaters of his day were confusing the source of light, the sun, or like this flashlight, with the actual light projection coming from it. In this analogy, this flashlight never leaves the center of the room, but since its light beam is crepuscular, it would be approaching and leaving certain objects slightly from their south as it turns, like this. But they say it must be the guy holding the flashlight walking out towards them on an angle. Well, couldn't that also happen on a globe? Not when they contradictorily claim their alleged poles from 80 to 90 degrees north and south latitude still receive oblique 40% incidental sunlight radiation of equatorial regions, accounting for an alleged 24-hour south polar sun despite the cold and actually causing the cold, not deflecting around the cold towards the center of their alleged globe. Sorry. That's called having your cake and eating it too. Gleason's book is riddled with chapters, Bible passages, Antarctic voyages, etc., and even this on his own map under the December 21st solstice. On December 21st, the sun moves around the Tropic of Capricorn and during the day lights up the southern portion of the Earth from the Antarctic Circle to some portion of the Antarctic ice, as he illustrates here. But then he says, there is no sunlight beyond 80 degrees south latitude, but unknown regions of ice. Coincidentally, that just happens to be exactly that blue latitude ring where I showed you there are no bases further outside of, other than the highly dubious, alleged Amundsen-Scott South Pole Base, and the same exact latitude where all of the early explorers said there was an impenetrable ice barrier, and the same latitude the globe calls the southern pole of inaccessibility, and the same latitude where Dome Fuji Base is parked 150 miles north of on one of these dome walls, but either won't or can't go any further for some reason, and Google's satellites magically won't let us see what is beyond that to the alleged South Pole, apparently thinking grayed out boxes with their logo is somehow more important than taking pictures of the alleged mysterious South Pole. And the same latitude where the ice wall indents in from the ocean, and there are no Antarctic bases, nor have there ever been. In the same time zone, Fantasy Island draws bulging out into the ocean as where they are hiding 3 hours of time in the north, and we're to believe this is all just one big coincidence? No light at all is a far cry from this alleged 24-hour globe sun that nobody can even agree on when it happens within days or weeks of each other. The New York Post recently ran an article about living in Antarctica. Their expert, Byron Adams, a Brigham Young professor of biology who has spent several stretches at McMurdo Base, usually staying for 2 or 3 months, assures us that the sun at McMurdo fully rises once in October and sets in March? How many times has this guy been there? March? There's McMurdo. Allegedly, the 24-hour sun ends February 20th or February 19th, nearly 2 weeks before March. The only base that allegedly gets a March sunset is the dubious Amundsen Scott South Pole Base, allegedly 860 miles south of McMurdo. Why can't these people ever get their stories straight?